for our little cascading drop down. So Visual Studio makes this really easy. As I said, we don't actually have to write any JavaScript. We basically want to add a package or code library that was developed that'll handle all our AJAX implementations. So if I go to the toolbox right now, actually, if I go into my ASPX and go to toolbox, if I close up my standard section, you'll notice, I don't know, do you guys have these things here under AJAX? Do you even have the AJAX panel in your toolbox? So there are some extensions here, but we do need a code library as well. So if I go to my Solution Explorer on the right, if I right-click my project and go to Manage NuGet Packages, so NuGet is Microsoft's package or plugin manager. It's sort of similar if you've played around with WordPress. It's like going into the plugins area in WordPress, basically. So some of these code libraries are created by Microsoft and some are created by third-party vendors, but we can add them. So what we want to search for, just do a search in the Online tab, do a search for AJAX.
Wait, type in search install packages?
No, we're searching online.
Oh, okay.
So type AJAX at the top, and what we want is the AJAX control toolkit. So the AJAX control toolkit is maintained by a third-party developer called DevExpress. It contains a whole suite of controls. They sort of describe some of them, things like autocompletes, panels, accordion controls, calendars, sliders. And we can basically drag and drop this stuff in. So I'm just going to click on the Install button. Tells me that our toolkit is installed now. And I can close the package manager. In January, when we work with Node.js, Node also has its own package manager similar to NuGet. It's called NPM, the Node Package Manager. Basically, when we create a Node.js site, we get sort of a bare bones site, and almost all of the extra functionality exists in third-party packages that we plug in as we go. So for example, we want to connect to a database, there'll be a package for doing database connections. We want to do security, there'll be a separate package for that. So it gives us, there's the home page, there's the link to the toolkit. If you're interested, it pops open this README file, which we don't need. So we're going to need a couple of things from this toolbox. The first one is we're going to need a script manager tag. The script manager basically is the Microsoft component that will automatically write all of the AJAX JavaScript for us. So any page where we want to implement AJAX needs a script manager. Now we can only have one. Otherwise it will write the same JavaScript functions more than once, which will crash our page. So we're just going to grab a script manager tag, and I'm going to put it on my form, basically right inside our main content placeholder. You can type the tag or you can drag and drop it. So it gets an ASP script manager tag. It automatically gets an ID and run at equals server. We don't have to do anything else with this tag. It just has to be on the form. We can only have one. And this has to go on our page before any AJAX controls that will use it. If you put an AJAX control on the page and a script manager tag at the bottom, the AJAX isn't going to run. The script has to precede any controls that will use it.
So you can still put it essentially anywhere on the page as long as it's before the AJAX.
Correct. And you can only have one. Okay. If I drag two of them on, if I put two of them on, so now I've got a second one. If I refresh my page, I will get an error.
The closing tags don't need to go at the bottom, right? But they're
Yeah, it's a self-closing tag. So you can only have one. Now, the other option, if we want to use AJAX throughout the site, where would it make sense to put this tag? Yeah, we could put it on our master page instead, near the top of the master page, as long as, in fact, that's what we're going to do. That's probably a better place for it. So I could take out that second script manager tag. So rather than having it right on the student page, I'm going to cut it out of here.
The thing we just posted?
Yep.
Okay.
And I'm going to go to my Solution Explorer and open up the master page. Now, where it goes on here is important. It has to go before which tag? Right, the content placeholder holds the content of any individual page. So we want our script manager tag to go anywhere before that opening tag, in case any of our pages then use an AJAX control. It also has to go inside of the form with run at equals server. So it can go either straight under the form or inside of this div. I'll put it here. So I'll just say global AJAX script manager. So any page can use AJAX. So now any pages in our application can use that. For example, let's say on our login page, if there's an invalid login, we want to print that red error label without doing a full page refresh. We just want to use AJAX for that section without reloading the header and footer. Well, this uses our master page. It has our script manager tag, so it's ready to go for AJAX. So now we'll come back to our student page. So what we want to do is we want to set up this section so that if there is a post back triggered in this section, it only updates this part that I've highlighted in blue. We don't want we want the rest of our page to be static if there is a post happening in this area. Post being triggered by our drop-down selection being changed. So what we want, if I'll go back to my toolbox, the control we use for this is called an update panel. It allows us to set out one or more areas of the page as being targets of an AJAX update. So I'm going to grab an update panel, and I'm just going to put it here for now. We're going to have to move things around a bit. So I've got it right above. Maybe what I'll do is actually drag it above my TD tag. So I'll put it here, and then I'm going to take my closing tag and put it down here after our second column. I can indent this stuff a bit to make it easier to read. So the first two columns are inside of the update panel because those are the only parts of the page that should be updated when this post back event happens.
How did you get the update portion? No, the update panel, sorry.
It's in the toolbox under AJAX extensions. I dragged an update panel control.
Okay, so the T body.
I'll also give this a friendlier name. I'll call it update course.
So we go to the AJAX and you click what, sorry?
Read the tag, please.
Oh, I should toolbox and you click what? The AJAX, sorry.
I clicked AJAX and update panel.
Okay.
Now, if I refresh the page, notice there's no C#. We can look and see what happens if we reload our page. Says it doesn't like TD being in here. You can't just nest a TD inside of an update panel. So we'll need to adjust that. So inside of my update panel, I'm just going to grab those two table columns. I'm going to indent them one more space. And if I start opening a tag, we can actually see what Visual Studio allows in here. It allows either a content template or a trigger. We'll be using both of these. The content template is what we want. That sets out what lives inside of this update panel. So we're going to select content template, and I'm going to move the closing tag down here. So our two table cells are part of the content of this update panel. This will fix the error we just got.
So you can still have the TDs inside, you just have to have them inside.
Right. Anything that has to appear inside of an update panel needs to go inside the content template tag. We'll come back to the triggers in a bit. We don't need the trigger for this update panel, but we will need it later. I'll sort of show you. Here, for example, if this was an ASP.NET AJAX, if I change the quantity, this section doesn't need a trigger because it's part of the same section of the page. But because an update here will also trigger updates here and there, that's what we can use triggers for. To say not only do we want to update this section, but we want to update another section of the page by an event here. So we've got three dynamic sections, A, B, and C. So A triggers updates in B and C. So that's what the triggers will be used for. So we'll come back to that. So if I just save these changes, now if we refresh the page and pick a department, we should get our drop-down repopulating, but without the entire page reloading and us being jumped, the user being jumped back to the top of the page. Let's try it. So now if we pick a student, okay, that didn't quite work the way we wanted it to. Just look at our JavaScript for a minute. We can see what our script manager does. So our script manager will check if the client-side framework is available or not. If not, it will throw a JavaScript error. We didn't get one of those, so that's good. So here's the AJAX it writes for our update panel. Okay, actually I'm going to try moving the update panel tags for a minute. Maybe it doesn't like them nested inside of my table. So I'm going to take my opening and close my update panel and content template. Let's put it right above our whole table. So the table itself is the target of our updates. The other potential issue is maybe it's not happy that the script manager's on our master page, although the JavaScript looks okay. So then I'm going to take my closing tags and I'll move those down below. My table as well. Just format the selection better. So I've just moved those two tags below the table and the opening two tags above the table. We'll see if that gets our AJAX running. There. Yeah. Our update panel didn't work nested inside of our table tag. So now if I pick a department, our course reloads, but we're not reloading the rest of the page. So we're saving bandwidth, we're keeping the user at the bottom of the page, which is where they want to be. It would be annoying to pick a drop down and then have to scroll all the way back down to the bottom. So that's a pretty easy implementation. We haven't written a line of code. All we did was drag two controls from the toolbox on. So now we're giving the user a better experience. So this kind of cascading drop down is used all the time, right? We might have pick a country, pick a state or province. Pick a state or province, pick a city. Pick a category, pick a product, etc. You know, pick a team, or a company, pick an employee or a player. So the implementation of this, you could do all this on the client. I mean, you could write all the JavaScript yourself, but if the application's in .NET, why would you? Why wouldn't you just drag the update panel on your form and let Visual Studio write the JavaScript? It'll also work cross-browser, so you can try this in pretty much any browser. You're going to get the same result. So long as JavaScript is enabled, it's going to run.
What would happen if JavaScript just wasn't able to just be like, no, nothing here, well, just wouldn't even try it?
It will throw an error saying, it's a good question, we can actually look at it. Right. So I can go here, and in Chrome I should get the same implementation. So I get my AJAX with our cascading dropdown. If you disable it, it's right here in the source. It will throw this error.
Okay.
It'll tell you that the AJAX client-side framework can't load.
So how would you develop around people who don't use JavaScript? You would just throw an error and say,
You could throw the error and say you need to enable JavaScript for the page to work. I think is what you'd have to do. So now what we want to do is do a couple of other things. We want to write the code right now. If I click add, we have validators, right? If either of these are set to select. I've added range validators to make sure the value is not 0 for either of these when we click add. So as soon as I pick a department and a course, if I click add, nothing happens. So we want to write the save code that will grab that student ID and grab this course ID and save the new record to the database, right? We want to insert this student into this course. What should happen on our page after we save the student into the selected course? What should happen visually?
Back to home.
We could. What would our other option be that might be a little more informative to the end user? Okay, we have that list already. Yep, so what should we do with that list? Right, so let's repopulate that list when the user clicks add. Do we need to reload the whole page for this? No, we can use AJAX. So this is where we're going to kind of do what Amazon does. So not only are we going to add them into the new course, but then we want an event in this section to trigger an update in that section. So we're going to put this in its own update panel, and we're going to set that when add happens, not only are we going to save to the database and reload the grid, but we're going to use AJAX to do it. First, we'll get it working with a full page refresh, and then we'll have to do the AJAX implementation. And then we'll probably want to do the same thing on delete. When the user clicks delete, we don't need to reload the whole page. Let's just update the grid. So we're going to need to write some code first on our add. So we'll go back to Visual Studio. And on our add button, if I type onClick equals, we're going to want to create a new event. So we'll want to create an event handler for our add button. So doing this, we'll write the btn add click event into our C# code, and we'll need to write the code in that function to save the new enrollment.
So add button, you want to have an add button to a button add?
You need what's here, what I just added, yes. So then we can jump into our C#. We'll see Visual Studio generated the btn add click event for us. And we'll need to add a bit of code to add the student to the course that was picked. So the first thing we will do is connect. We'll instantiate a new enrollment. So I'll create a variable that's of type enrollment equals a new enrollment. So now we need to fill two properties of the enrollment: the student ID and the course ID. Who's the student and what's the course? So we can get we have the student ID up in our URL. So we can take our request.queryString student ID. So grab the student ID from the URL and populate our student ID property here. We're also going to have to convert it, because when it's part of the URL query string, it's always considered a string. So we'll just need to convert that to an integer. So that's the first half of what we need. Okay, we know who the student is. Then we'll get the selected value from the course dropdown. Now we know what course the student's going to take. And again, we'll have to do a type conversion because it's a string. Now our enrollment object also has a grade property. We don't need to set the grade now. When you register for the course, you don't have a grade yet, right? We're just putting you in the course. We'll do an update later and you'll get a grade later. So we can leave that out. So we're going to add our new enrollment object to our enrollments collection and call save changes. So this will add the new record to the database. We know who the student is, we know what course we want to put them in, and we'll save. So now, as Mackenzie suggested, we need to refresh the grid, right? We put them in a new course, that course needs to get added to the grid above. So we already wrote a function for this, right? We copied and pasted it from Blackboard earlier. Here's the function. We called it get enrollments. So we'll just now call that function. It takes the student ID out of the URL, queries the database for all of the courses, and reloads the grid. So we'll just add get enrollments. We don't need to reload the student data in our form. That's not changing the first name, last name, enrollment date. We're only refreshing the grid. The other thing we might do is clear out our drop-downs, because our drop-downs will be sticky. We'll do it like this for now, but afterwards we'll probably want to call our get departments function as well to reload the drop-downs. Or at least, actually, probably more simply, we can clear out whatever course is it, whatever courses are in the courses, and reset both to be, say, select. We'll do that after. So if we reload our page now and pick a department, pick a course, and click Add, it should put the student in that new course. If this code does what I think it's going to do.
Which are probably above.
We'll give it a try, just make sure it's right, and I'll put it back up for anybody who doesn't have all of it. So our friend Arturo is going to branch out, do some English. Okay. We didn't get an error. What happened? I clicked Add. There is. Our code is right here. Let me try a different course. Arturo really likes English. He's thinking of changing his major. Why did what happened? There's one of two options, right? Let me just query my database for a minute. So if I look in enrollments, I have two new enrollments for student ID 300002 with no grade, so it did save both of them to the database. Why is my grid not refreshing? Right, if I refresh up here, it did actually save both of those. Why, every time I enroll them in a new course, right, I rerun the query, it's saving. What's going on with my grid?
Is there like no signal to look up when you update?
Well, there is a signal. We are looking it up. We're calling get enrollments. Why isn't the grid repopulating? Give you a hint, it has to do with the fact that we used AJAX. If we didn't use AJAX, it would be refreshing the grid. Why is the grid not being reloaded? Why don't we see the new record in the grid until I refresh the entire page? Look carefully at our HTML. with our AJAX. You're on the right track, Vadim. Our add button lives inside of our AJAX panel, which means when a postback happens inside of this update panel, which part of the page is updated. So this whole thing is in one update panel. So whenever there's a postback here, which part of the page is getting updated? It only updates itself, right? Our add button is inside of that update panel, which means when it does a postback, the rest of the page is static. It gets ignored. So this is where we need to think about using a trigger, right? We want it to work like Amazon works, so that an update here not only updates this section, but it will also update these other parts of the page. So an update, we don't want the drop downs to update the grid, but we want our button to update the grid. So the ASP.NET update panels, they let us do this. So when there's a post back here, the grid shouldn't change. But if there's a post back triggered by this, our grid should also get updated. So we need another update panel, and this is what we're going to need a trigger for. So an event in one section can also update another section. So I'm going to scroll up just above my update panel. I'm going to grab my grid view, and I'm going to indent it a couple of tabs. We're going to put on a second ASP update panel. I'll call it UPD grid. And it has to have a run at equals server attribute. My closing update panel tag has to go after my grid view. What else has to go around the grid view? We need another set of tags around it. If I run it this way, I'm going to get an error. We already saw this error earlier.
Using trigger now?
We will need trigger, but even before that, we need to use the other tag, right? Our update panel needs a content template section. So our grid view also has to live inside of the content template. So this is the HTML contents of our update panel. This on its own won't quite do the trick. Now, as Kaylee suggested, now we need a trigger. So we're going to add one other thing in this grid. We're going to add the attribute update mode equals conditional, meaning we might update it, we might not. It depends what the AJAX event is that happens. When the drop-down selection happens, we don't want to update this grid. But when the user clicks the add button, we do want to update the grid. So now we need a trigger to go along with that property. So underneath my content template, I'm going to add a triggers tag. We can have multiple triggers. So that means one or more events could update this section. So what we're going to create is an asynchronous postback trigger, meaning there's a postback, but it's not the full page that's loading. It's an AJAX event that's, and all we have to pass in, what control is it and what is the event name that will trigger an update in our grid. So what control ID should trigger an update of our grid? Yeah, it's the BTN add button. That's our control ID. Where am I? So our control ID is BTN add. When our add button and our event name is click. So just to translate this into everyday language, when the object called BTN add triggers that event called click, we want our grid to be updated.
It's like a event listener in JavaScript.
That's exactly what it is. The script manager writes the event listener, right? So you guys have done this manually before. So the trigger is an event listener. So by default, when it's inside of one update panel, that section's updated. But we're letting another part of our page get updated as well by that click event.
So you put the trigger.
So now if you enroll the student in a course and click the add button, now your grid should get refreshed automatically. So this update panel receives basically the click event. It's a target of that event. Let's try it out. So I'll just refresh my page. Anand is very studious, so he wants to take more courses. So he's going to take calculus. So now our grid loads without the rest of the page being refreshed. He wants to take trigonometry. So now we're getting the effect that we want. Now the other thing we should probably try is what happens with delete. Now delete is inside of an update panel, so it should use AJAX automatically. Now there is one thing you should also notice. So it's already using AJAX. Something's also missing. What's missing every time I click delete?
It's not giving a warning.
Yeah, that confirmation, this is something to keep in mind. If I reload the page from scratch and click delete, I got my JavaScript confirmation. But if I click it again, I don't get it. Why? We just managed to break it.
It's not posting back.
Page load.
Right, our page, if we think about our master page, I know we did this weeks ago, but this gets attached on document.ready, right? That doesn't run on that asynchronous post back. It only runs the first time. So we probably have to change, we either have to change when this runs, or we need to put it in a function and invoke that function again every time we have an asynchronous post back. Otherwise, we lose that confirmation. So we've got to be a little bit careful. If we're coding, adding front-end JavaScript or using jQuery for events that should happen when our page loads, if we use AJAX for doing partial page loads, that code isn't going to run again. So we've got to keep that in mind. This can be affected by it. So we should probably tweak that. Off the top of my head, I can't quickly think. I'd have to spend time thinking about how we would do it. The other thing we should probably add here, after I add a student into a course, these drop downs will stay sticky. We should probably reset them. So after we click add, this gets reset to select, and that gets cleared out. We should do that as soon as the user clicks add. So notice it still shows the department and course. So we'll just add a bit more code on the bottom of our add button. so that we can do that. So we'll reset the drop downs. So for departments, there's no need to query the database again. We already have the list of departments. We just want to reset the selected option back to the first one. So what we can do is set ddl department.selected index equal to -1, meaning don't select anything, but show the first item in the list. For our courses, let's see, our drop-down has a clear method. It would get rid of all the options in there, but then we would also then we have to put our select option back if we clear all the items. So our other option would be to use a loop to remove all of the items except for the first one. I guess it really doesn't matter which we do. Probably. Well, let's see, that's probably okay if we called clear selection. Actually, I guess we could call clear selection on both. Let's try that. Maybe that's a good solution. So after we add, the drop-downs should get reset. So we'll load a student again. We'll enroll the student in a course. And now they're re-filtered. So that works if we just use clear selection.
So before you had the -1, why was it -1? It wasn't select 0?
If you select 0, you could do either. Select 0 selects the first option. -1 means no item is selected. It won't be blue.
Gotcha.
We'd get the same effect, really. So we haven't removed the items. Hi, come on in. We haven't removed the items. We've just cleared, have a seat anywhere you like. We've just cleared out what gets selected. So I should probably figure out a little AJAX fix for this. But now we've sort of replicated what Amazon's done by using our trigger. So an update here will affect there, which is kind of what we were going for. So we actually, excuse me, so all of our AJAX is happening on the client side, right? We can write all of this functionality without AJAX. We've just given the user a better experience. We've increased the speed of our page. We've reduced the bandwidth. It works faster for the user. It keeps them looking at the section of the page that we want them looking at. So all we needed was our script manager, and we used our update panels. And it's important that we added this attribute here, update mode equals conditional, which says it will be updated by certain events and not others. So we just used the basic Microsoft AJAX controls. When we installed the NuGet package, which adds a reference to the control toolkit, we can actually see some of those. It said there's 40 some odd other AJAX controls. So you're free to play around with them. In fact, if you start typing, I think, so they're all prefixed here. with AJAX Toolkit. So you can see what there is. So things like accordion controls for showing or hiding panels quick, easily. There's an autocomplete, file uploads, bubble charts, calendars. Lots of jQuery things like sliders, validator. So you can just drag and drop those controls and use them in your solution.
Question, like for the update panel,
Yep.
update course, why there isn't like update mode and conditional in there?
Okay. Good question. Well, I'll take it out and we can see what happens with the behavior. Maybe we don't need it, but I suspect that we do. So I'm going to remove that attribute. Okay, guess we don't need it. Sorry, I thought we needed that. I always like when you guys teach me things. I thought we would need it in order for the trigger to take effect, but it seems to work without it. So that's fine in that case. One of the other controls that we do use sometimes is a progress control. So if we're going to run an operation that's going to take a while, let's say we're sending a credit card payment and we know we're going to be waiting to get a response back, or we're running a big search query and we know we're not going to have results right away to display, Microsoft's got this built-in progress control. Basically, you can attach an animated GIF to it, usually something that goes around or a progress bar. And the way the progress control works is AJAX will trigger the event to pop the progress control up, and that progress control will display so long as our process is running. As soon as the process is complete, AJAX automatically hides that control.
Would it be well, with all of the CSS animations, would it be possible to just connect like a development to it and have it just animate itself around instead of a GIF?
That's a great question. You probably could. I've never tried, to be honest with you. I can't see any reason why you wouldn't be able to do it that way if you wanted to. So again, something to think about using, again, just to give the user a better experience so they're not getting a white screen and wondering whether your page is crashing or not. If you know that process is going to take a while, showing them the progress is going to hopefully keep your user, let them be more patient in waiting. That you're indicating, yes, you know it's going to take a while. So the progress, update progress will do that for you. Are there any other questions about implementation of AJAX with ASP.NET?
Does it take more memory to implement it? I mean, generally, like, does it take longer for the user to download an application that implements AJAX?
Slightly. Well, I mean, that's a very good question. Let's look at. I mean, if we look at the JavaScript that's here, you know, this JavaScript is built into .NET, right? There's our validation. It links to this script resource. So a couple of these are AXD files, but they're linked, they're not embedded. It's doing the quick check just to see if the library is enabled. It does have an initialization of the update panels, but again, one quick function to initialize. There's our form. That's our validation code. So that's really it. So I would say no, there's probably, you know, another 10 lines of JavaScript plus what's in these AXDs. And most of this has to do with the validation, really. So I would say the payload is quite light, and the performance boost and the bandwidth reduction we get from using it and from not doing the full page uploads can be huge, right? This isn't a particularly big page, really, but it could be. We could have a lot of other stuff, You know, let's say, you know, we've hard-coded our navigation. Maybe we have navigation that connects to the database with a lot of links. We've got sidebars, you know, we've got social media feeds. We have other things going on here. We might have a lot more form fields to query and populate. We might have a much bigger grid, things going on in the footer. So we can be saving a huge payload, potentially, with AJAX. I mean, think about what's going on here, right? How much of this is dynamic and all of this stuff we could be saving by simply updating one section.
So just as a working example, if you were hosting, let's say, an image gallery, but you weren't hosting the image gallery, it was hosted somewhere else, and you were using AJAX to asynchronously, I guess, cycle through it, you would save quite a bit of bandwidth by using AJAX, even though you're still not necessarily using JavaScript. There's an advantage there, you would say, right?
Absolutely. So here, I mean, there's kind of a quick sample I've been building with my class this afternoon. I can log in if I think about it. What do we call it? Let's do it. Because we did a PHP image gallery. So the upload page is not right here, but let's say we had 100 thumbnails and we had the ability to upload right here, right? If we could use AJAX to do that posting, without AJAX, every time I upload a new photo, even if those photos are cached, it's still got to re-upload all the photos. It'd be much simpler to put that in an update panel and leave the rest of the page static, right? We're going to save a huge amount of bandwidth. And if you're hosting in the cloud, you're saving a huge amount of money too. Right? There's no need to reload and requery all that stuff. In fact, the bandwidth, the overhead's twice, because not only do we have to render the images again, but we have to run the database query again that repopulates it. We've got to fetch all of those records. At the moment there's 6, but there could be 600, 6,000 on here. So to run the query to fetch all the data and then render all those images again, it's a lot of processing. There's no need to do it. If we just want to upload one image, may as well use AJAX. Are there any other questions?
Well, I'm getting, not like it's not working. I don't know if it's from the lab last week. Like I just can't log into any pages, just keep taking me right back to the error page. I changed, like I know that I threw in that like error on purpose, but I fixed that myself.
Okay, a couple of things you could try. The first one is, and it's happening every time you log in.
Yeah, like it's as soon as I log in, it's taking me right.
Okay, the first thing, and I actually was going to, I should have suggested this, we do this earlier, because it is a pain every time we recompile to keep logging in and logging out. You could remove the auth control from your student page.
Okay.
If the login is what's crashing it, you could take this out for today. If you make it a public page, then you could be working on it without having to log in. You could also disable your error handling and let it crash, and then you would see what the error is. So that would be another option. Anybody else have any questions about what we've done so far today?
When we are deleting a content, why isn't the warning being shown to us?
Okay. The warning isn't being shown because it happens when the document ready function loads. That loads the first time our page loads. The problem is, we're not actually reloading the whole page. So here's our function in the master page when I loaded the first time. The code is still here, but document ready doesn't execute again. So that's not there. So we need to figure out a different wrapping or a different way to call this function. So what we probably need to do actually, in our delete, the other thing we could do, although I'd have to think about it. So here's our delete function. We probably, after we refresh the enrollments, we need to call the JavaScript function again to reattach that delete handler. So we want to reattach JS delete confirmation. So what we'd probably need to do is copy this or put it in another function and then call it again here. I'll have to work through, think about how best to do it. Okay, it's 10:15, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a 10-minute break and not longer. You need to be back by 10:25, okay? Because that will give you 25 minutes, which is all the time you need to do Lab 5, okay? There's no code involved.
Well, can we get the introduction before the break?
Okay, yeah, I could do that. Let's see how many people we have. You need a partner for this. We were doing the lab with a partner. So pick a partner. Okay. Everybody has a partner except for May and Ruby will need a partner, so maybe you can work with Ruby. Okay, so how many of this? So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Or wait a minute, you guys working together? Okay.
Rachel can be
Yes,
our
so
partner.
May and Ruby, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8.
She's our partner.
Unless you want to.
Yeah, we have enough. Okay, wait.
We have enough for groups of 2.
Yeah, we do have enough for groups of 2. So Michelle, maybe you and Connor can work. Connor doesn't have a partner. Oh,
Sorry for the confusion.
Rachel could be our partner.
fine.
We're claiming her.
Okay, so 1, 2, pay attention to your number. 3, 4, 5, 6. What I give you guys 8?
Yeah.
No, there is no 7.
Oh, then what are we?
Hang on. I will tell you. 8. We'll skip 9. So 10 and 11. Okay? Here's what you have to do. I will give you until the end of class, and I will count it at your lab to make a cheat sheet for the lesson topic I gave you. Okay? I will compile all of the notes and send them out to everybody, and you can bring it to the exam next week.
So the exam is on everything.
The exam is on everything we have done. Okay? So I will make, under tools and discussion board, I'll make a class forum. And in here I will make one thread with the title, post your exam notes here. So all you need to do is each group for your lab, you need to make one reply. So I'm going to create a thread. Post. So post your exam notes and be sure to include your names because I will mark it. So just go in here, click on that thread. Again, it's under tools and discussion board and class forum. So just reply to this with one post. You can either put the notes right in here or you could create a Word document and upload it. You can put in code samples. I wouldn't just take the code and paste it all in. I would put in some explanations. This is what this means. This is what this does. Okay, so I'll compile all the notes. I will send them out to everybody as a PDF with a table of contents, and you're free to use that next week during the exam. Okay. Yeah, one set of notes per group. So make them together. Notes are due at the end of class. So Ruby, if you and May can work together for the lab on making study notes for lesson 1 on Blackboard.
Yeah, I'm just, you can take one here.
Yeah.
Change the default from calendar to 500 per hour on this one. Just have the text box and inputs it with that. And what really good anyway. Actually sets the default time.
In the text box?
No, the actual calendar that you're in text box.
Have to go to the code. So on page load, type calendar dot. Let's see. In page load, type calendar dot, and let's see what property we get.
Right, but it should there. I like when I love it.
Oh no, sorry, this.
Thanks for the discussion.
You're not gonna.
Doesn't look like it gives you that ability, no.
So just a new text box then.
Okay, we have to disable the error handling.
Like I took it off.
But it's in web, you have it out of, yeah, you have to change it to off in web document.
Hey, you want
Parallel.
my there?
Where? I know.
Somebody decided.
I know.
Oh,
Parallel.
and like,
Where do we, I can just turn it off. Like here.
If you also, yeah, if you handle,
Validation.
if you have an application error event,
Yeah.
global ASAX, you'll have.
Input validation.
Yep. So, I know we have to.
So try it again now.
I don't have to filter.
No, you just change the web document file.
Should I give them an example of
Inside the content placeholder, it has to go above the content placeholder.
Is it January or January? Yeah, it's like the What else is valid?
Okay, so.
It's, what is it?
I mean.
this was all.
Those were all what the surplus. Yeah.
And then you have to swing it to. No, you're coming back in January. Why? Why not? Are you doing your co-op? You're not doing co-op? She making her, tell her why. Tell me why. What's going on?
Essentially, they're AJAX that are
You got sure you still use it, there's no reason.
It's like I'm gonna break it down for you guys. After coming here and
But you just, eventually they have like US and Canadian companies that work with it.
He's literally gonna put everything away, so
Look at that.
it's valuable, you know, it's people put a lot, which kind of screws everybody. Or you put the answer is.
You can copy and paste all this code. Ask comments, but everyone's gonna eat because they know. One thing they technical question is if you put that server attribute, one of the things we do is like knitting and what else?
No, I said my sister, I have a friend whose family's from Korea, but he's Canadian. He was born here, yeah. Yeah. Yes. She didn't quit, it was just an internship, so it's only like 4 months. And it's a non-profit company, so they will pay you. You won't even, what's that?
He's gonna find anything
But I didn't watch the interview, so I'll be okay.
Terrible movie. It was.